welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. Now, we've got some amazing guests with us today. We've got obviously Richard Synnott and Bobby Verdun from the Active Entities Consultancy. So, I mean, these guys have got an amazing career, which we'll go into, but obviously we'll start there in a moment. But obviously, also, as always, my trusty sidekick Glenda. How are you?
Very good. How are you guys?
Yes, very well, thank
Excellent.
you. So, how are you two, Bobby, Richard? Are you well?
Doing well.
I'm doing awesome.
Brilliant. Well, it's nice for you to join us because obviously you guys are over the other side of the pond, so it's not always easy to match up timings and everything. So it's great to have some international guests, which bizarrely on Series 3 we've had quite a few because we've had Barry, Casey Conrad's coming on in a few weeks. So we have this.
Oh, great.
I don't know. The Americans seem to be jumping in on our podcast, so it's quite nice to see. So probably a great place to start, guys, because obviously not everybody knows who people are when we get our guests on. Do you want to sort of take it in turns and give us a rundown of who you guys are, what your sort of career is, and how you've come to this consultancy business you've got now?
Yeah, well, I'll let Bob start since, he's the handsomest and youngest of probably of all of us. So.
Bob, that's not a great representation of the mainland here. It's pretty great to be able to work with your mentor. I got into this industry about 24 years ago, and Rich was my mentor. We worked together at a multi-purpose club, and Rich has forgotten more than I'll ever know, but I couldn't have asked for a better coach. I came from the world of sports. I was a basketball and tennis coach at the college level, at the pro level.
Wow.
And when my family came, I said, I got to get off the road because that's what that life is. And got into this crazy industry. And Rich really was leading the breadcrumbs all the way up to success. And, I've done a lot of different things throughout my career. And then I realized there's nothing better than giving back and working with people that reminded me of myself when I was getting into the industry. And if I could give them half of what I got from Rich and people that really led me the right way, then I felt great about it. And then I was lucky as soon as Rich said he was retiring, I told him out of retirement, and we became partners. And we focus on independent clubs, privately owned clubs, which are becoming less and less. You see less and less of them, but we really try to help the independent owners. We work with nonprofits. We work with a lot of sports complexes, which we'll talk about today. That's a real trend we're seeing, and we have a blast doing what we do. At least I do. I know about Rick.
I love that.
Well, he must enjoy it. He must enjoy it because he's come back to work with you. So there must be something that's dragged him back.
Yeah, he's literally come back from the dead 8 times, but that's a whole other story that we'll get into some other time.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Well, so my elevator pitches, I've been doing this for about 45 years. I was in marketing and advertising. I actually was a sponsored racquetball player way back in the day, and that's how I got into this industry. And so I had some banking and financial experience. I knew the game, and somebody was building a racquetball and fitness club in my town.
Just to quantify, Rich, because obviously racquetball to us, is that squash? Is it tennis? Is it
it's a different game. It's like squash, but without the bumpers at the bottom. Court's a little smaller, but it's a floor wall ceiling racket sport game. There's not a lot of it going on anymore because of the square footage. It's an 800 square foot space, which it had to be like 20 feet high. So what people have done over the years, they've decked that space. Instead of having 2 or 3 people out there playing racquetball or like squash, you could put, 20 or 30 people in there doing group exercise and fitness. So
that's a lot of that happened in the UK. They turned into spas, didn't they, Glenda? They turned a lot of them into the spas.
Yeah, it's very rare to see squash courts left. That's what we would call them in the UK, but you don't see them now. It's quite sad, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I was playing in a tournament once when I hit 30, and some 15-year-old beat me and never even took his sweats off in the first round. At that point, I said, you know what, I think it's time to retire and do something else. But as Bob said, I've been fortunate to have worked in over the years in the New England market of the United States, and 6 of the biggest multi-purpose, full indoor, outdoor tennis, basketball courts, racquetball, squash, fitness, group exercise, food and beverage operations, that whole thing. So I've got a very strong
you don't
experience.
do too small over there, though, do you, though, Rich? To be fair, I mean, we have David Lloyd's over here, and the odd ones that sort of link with it, but even they're not like your guys' huge, big, multi-complex facilities that you have. I mean, some of them are behemoth of places, aren't they? They're huge. But
the interesting thing is that having that experience is great, but we've also, as Bob mentioned, we've worked with some smaller startups. I mean, I'm at that point in my life where I don't necessarily need the money if the opportunity is interesting, and we've got a bunch of young people now that want to get into the business. They don't have a lot of money. They're trying to start up. I mean, we've done consulting gigs that probably should have cost $5,000 or $6,000. It's just some startup planning with people and charge them like $500 just because we want them to be successful. The other interesting track that we found is, during this whole COVID thing, 30% of the clubs went out of the business, probably more than that in the United States. But that property, a lot of it was still there. And we actually ended up for a period of time helping people who wanted to get into the industry find clubs that were for sale. And I feel bad for the people that had to sell these clubs. We had one person in the southern part of the country. He opened up 6 months before COVID killed his business, and he put $600,000 or $700,000 into building out a fitness space and having all this new equipment, and he had to go bankrupt. And we found some new owners that bought that for like 30 cents on the dollar.
It's crazy, isn't it? So it's I worked with a chain that ended up closing. They ended up closing about 20 of their sites. They were franchises, but all the franchises ended up going, and they were selling the equipment for $200,000 worth of kit for $20,000. Yeah, and you just felt for these poor owners. It was just soul destroying to watch it happen.
Yeah,
so difficult.
Yeah, so because I mean that's pretty much, I'm doing it just to keep my hand in and keep my mind active, and just keep from being bored. Really, sitting out here in the
keep out the hair of the other half. Is that what you're saying?
we call Rich the beard of knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on the front of the podcast, the beard of knowledge.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to hear people, though, that are out there who are prepared to do that, and you cannot substitute experience, right? You guys have done this for a long time, and I really think that there's a message in that even now for the listeners, that I know there are times that they think consultants are expensive, but what is the expense of the things that you might do that you guys would have always maybe steered them away from? That is actually going to save a lot of money in the long term,
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that there's a lot of people that put consultant at the end of their name, and they don't have experience. They don't have success. They've never gone through the times and things that we've gone through, and that says a lot for the industry right now. Our industry is leaderless. It has no rudder. Ursa echoes, it's just passe now, and there's a big change going on. And I think that in many ways, things that Rich and I were doing 20 years ago, we've modernized, the internet, social media, but the concepts and the systems that we put into place are still going strong and successful.
Well, it's funny, Ryan and I can be.
I mean, how long she been in business, Casey? And yet all her sales stuff still stands up today. Yet if you go into, I don't know whether you guys find it when you go into independent clubs, most of them now got into this habit of doing these museum tours again, and it's just gone, all the great stuff that was put in that us guys would have done back 15, 20 years ago just isn't there. And you're like going, but it works. Why aren't we doing these things?
Casey's magic is she's like the Madonna, and I say this in a positive way, of the industry. She's adapted and changed and left and come back, and I have a lot of respect for her because she's really been able to adapt a lot of her things and modernize them, and she's still very relevant. So, but
the great thing is the principles that we were doing all those times ago, like you're saying, hasn't changed, and a lot of the times it doesn't need to. It just needs to go with the modern stuff, and that's why people like yourselves with huge experience still have a huge role to play in driving the industry forward. But I think you're right.
I'd be curious to challenge your thinking, guys, because I know that you know so much about this amazing industry. I'm curious to ask you, you know, we've not done a great job really of increasing the people that are participating though, in the clubs. And to me, that's where, you know, the big opportunity lies is, you know, we keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And I guess what I'd love to ask you guys is, how do we actually move the dial now and go, right, you know, we're not going to be able to just go after more of the same. We need to go after more of different, because there's a massive market there that we just don't get into our clubs. And I just wondered what your thoughts were about that. And maybe that might even lead us down the idea of looking at some of these trends that you might be seeing right now.
Rich, you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, because this fits perfectly in with some of the trends that we're seeing that people have been slow to adopt, but you also have to change them a little bit in order to engage the members that you have in your facilities and try to make it more enticing. The first thing I want to say is, though, that we are facing a massive media blackout when it comes to actually the importance of fitness. I just read a thing the other day. They were talking some corporate fitness study that was like some massive thing. Hey, people who engage in regular exercises are more productive. And it's like, we have known this for freaking 50 years. I mean, what is going on with this? And the people that still, if you go a club regular, you're still a fitness nut, or that the whole thing. The other thing I was watching, I don't watch a lot of television. I couldn't believe the amount of junk food ads that are on there. And things that make fun of you if you exercise, unless you're going to buy a car. Then everybody is out exercising and driving up on mountaintops and hiking and skiing. And it's like, really? I mean, come on. So we're in a massive world that is sort of anti-exercise to begin with, right? But when it comes to some of the things that are available now, one of them we talk about, omnichannel fitness, and that's more, exercise at home, the office, and hotels, and live Zoom stuff that's coming around. Now, clubs are still not embracing some of the technology that's out there to try to connect their members. And I like to talk about another part of this, which we call it's called fitness snacks, exercise snacks. It's like 10-minute things that you can do. So can we train our members to do things outside the club and while they're home? So if you're binge watching a favorite show, instead of going to the television and going to your refrigerator, right, and getting some ice cream, maybe you engage in a 10-minute fitness snack. You pause it for 10 minutes and you go up and down the stairs or run around your yard for 10 minutes, or you do some push-ups. We should be helping people to understand that they can fit these in at work, at home, when they're traveling. Do we do it? No one does much of that. You might find a little bit on the internet, but are personal trainers giving people this information? And the other thing that kind of segues into this is the, wearable technology. Now, I just happened to have iWatches, Fitbits, polar heart rate monitors. I mean,
he's got them all.
I've had them all, and I use a couple of different times, but the thing that's going on with this now is you don't need to be in a club to have the stuff that, you know, it monitors everything. You can monitor your sleep patterns, you know, body temperatures, calories burned, blood pressure, oxygen saturation. There's 100 million or 120 million Apple Watch wearers in the world right now. Do you know any club that's actually doing any kind of training that utilizes that technology and incorporates into their fitness programming? I don't know anybody. Now there's some.
I know one, because there's a really good founder out of Australia that's working with Lift brands, and they're using wearable technology to drive the data into the programming. It's phenomenal. But you're right, though, it's rare.
And the MyZone stuff, what I like about MyZone is because I could do these exercises in the club, outside the club. The club that I belong to has screens inside that shows all of it, and the teachers and the group exercise classes teach to the MyZone and the proper heart rate. And the clubs that really embrace it, they do a pretty good job, but they're still missing the boat because most of the contests.
What do you think is causing it, though, Rich? What do you think's that disconnect? Because there's obviously the technology's there. The club facilities are there. The knowledge is there because, I mean, obviously we've got some amazing personal trainers in our business because we do. But somewhere there's a disconnect that somehow we've got to join all these dots to go, okay, as a club, you have the MyZone's really good. I like the work that Dave Wright and that's doing that. So that's working its way in there. But all this technology that's available, and yet we still don't, as clubs, is it cost? Is it they don't understand the benefit of it? What do you think is creating this disconnect between the technology and the clubs themselves?
I think it's basically we don't have the understanding of the technology first. A lot of the equipment that's out there now is you know, has this stuff that's embedded inside the treadmills, but most people get on their treadmill and they push, you know, 3 miles an hour and that's it. These things have so much more bandwidth that they could do things with, but I think it's also because it's so fractured, right? So if you're going to try to do a small group class, maybe 6 or 8 people, and you're a trainer, and you know 3 people have an iWatch, and 1 person's got a Fitbit, and 2 people have polar heart rate monitor. How do you pull this together? So you got to be pretty creative to do it, but I still think there's ways to get around it. I'll talk about a couple in a second, but one of the other things that I find that we're missing the boat on with any of the competitive events that we do to try to engage people in these things, it's always a horse race, right? It's always like whoever gets the most points, whoever burns the most calories, whoever loses the most weight. And that's a very small bandwidth of the population, right? And even myself, I'm one of those type A's. I like to manage and measure things and see how I'm doing. I don't engage in those contests anymore because I'm never going to get to those top 10 people to get freaking 10,000 MyZone points. These are those fitness nuts, right? They're in the gym 3 or 4 hours a day getting those points, and I'm never going to win that contest. Why not have a contest that says all of these things have a baseline? You can measure what you average in a month or a day or a week and say, here's what you've been doing. Achieve your goal by 30%, and now you win the contest or win the socks or the free month membership or whatever it's going to be, right? That's where I think, you know, a lot of people are still missing it. And we just had a client the other day I was talking with. He's putting a thing in place, and it's a horse race again. You're only going to have 1 or 2 people that are going to always win these things. You've got to engage other people. So
it's like gym challenges. Can you remember back in the day when we always used to do gym challenges, and they were always who's the fastest row or went the furthest, but actually the ones that worked were the ones where you effectively put them into teams. So you put your members into various teams, and they had to obviously, and they worked far better than because all you did was you went after the ultra competitive that were going to go and row for 500 meters or 1,000 meters, whatever it was, and see who's the fastest. And they never really have the same. They didn't draw the numbers in, so that's where a lot of these integrated challenges don't work. And
so let me give you. I'm going to let Bob speak in a second because I think this was actually his idea, but back in the day. But we put a program together and I've done this a number of times with another club that was across the country. So we were in, I don't know if it was Canton or where we were at the time, Bob, Massachusetts, but we had another person that we knew at a club in, I don't know if it was California or Nevada. Nevada. It was, I think that was the one, but maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, and because we can measure how many miles a person has gone in some of these things, right? If you're walking on a treadmill or whatever, you tracked your mileage. And when you got the 2,000 miles to the other club, you got one of their T-shirts. And we did the same thing. Their members could walk, bike, ride, row to our club, and they would get one of our club T-shirts. So the cost was relatively small, and it might take me 2 weeks or a month to get there. Someone else might take 3 months, but they were striving towards something that was kind of fun. And then people kind of knew that, oh, you did something because I can see you're wearing the T-shirt from the Tucson Athletic Club. I don't know if that was one of yours, Bob, but you could talk about this too, because you've done some pretty cool contests.
See, what we did this morning, guys, is we put Rich in a closet and locked the door. And right before game time, we opened it out and boom, there he goes. I told you, it's awesome. It's Rich hit every, a lot of the points that I was going to say. I will just add that, especially since the pandemic, health is important to people. Health
Absolutely.
Clubs are not important to people. We need to understand that we are not the end-all, end-all, that we are merely vehicles to get them healthy. But what happens is, and we've seen this a lot, is that health clubs come in and think, hey, we put out these great, unbelievable gadgets and things that people are going to come. If they don't get results, if they don't feel comfortable, if they have a crappy experience because we decided not to clean the bathrooms on Tuesdays and Thursdays to save money, these are things that are more prevalent now than ever before to people, right? I mean, cleanliness, people feeling like they are safe, people feeling like when they come into the club that they're comfortable. We see a lot of change going on now with successful clubs. Clubs are the meeting place, right? That's where things begin. But we see a lot of people take, Rich has a great line, and I know he's going to talk about it later, club without walls, where you use resources in your area. I spent a lot of time in Australia. My mom lived in Australia for a number of years. Yoga on the beach, and I know Rich is going to elaborate on this more later on, but, our industry seemed to feel before COVID that we were the end all end all. But guess what? We weren't relevant. We were the first thing that people shut down. Not the medical.
And not just that. When you think about it, Bobby, there's only 15%. Like, I don't know what the penetration rate in the US is, but over here it's 15%, 16 at best. And so you think we're not the be all and end all in the great scheme of things. I can't imagine it's only 15% of people that are exercising in the UK. I can imagine it's upwards of 50, 60. But the reality is only 15% are members of gyms. So we're actually quite a small part. The other huge number are those playing sport, walking in the dales, cycling, running, whatever it is, swimming. They're not at our clubs. And so you're right. We're not this be all and end all that our industry thinks we are.
No, and it was reinforced pretty strongly when the first thing that health clubs in America were grouped with casinos. That's how irrelevant gyms were when COVID hit. Let's keep that in perspective for a second. So now what's going on is, no, we're a medical resource. No, we're not. We're a building that likes to make money off people's fears. That's what we were looked at as. Yeah. And how many gyms were still taking money from members 1 month, 2 months, 3 months into COVID. Rich and I worked with hundreds of clubs over COVID. I don't think we charged more than 10% of what we normally charge, because we were dealing with owners that were literally, where do we go for this? Ursa was saying, stay open at all costs, stay open at all costs. Well, yeah, if you're Lifetime and you can lose $1 billion and still be okay, of course you can do that. So, everything has changed, Ryan. And in my opinion, we need to look at a club proper in a completely different way. And that's what we're starting to see now. It's not the fitness industry anymore. It's not wellness. It's active living, and the importance of it now is now that's relevant, because if you're not keeping your heart rate up, if you're not doing the things you need to do, and another thing comes around like happened with COVID before, you're going to die. So this is
I think
a lot.
Yeah, Bobby, I love so much of what you're saying there, but there's so much in there to unpick, because I say this to Ryan all the time as an ex-owner myself, and I was very lucky to sell to the world's largest fitness brand, so my story was a good one. I had a very successful club, but even with the experience of a club that was viable, I do think the model's broken, because we don't get enough people in the club to make the numbers work. We're not attracting people who want more than just the workout. You talked about being a place for socialization, a place where they can work on, and I do love what you said there, maybe not the medical model of wellness, but definitely lifestyle, which means sleep, nutrition, exercise, general mood. And you know what? From an education perspective, we do not understand behavioural change in our sector.
Yes.
We really don't, because we actually think that when people don't come to the gym and do their exercise, we might, if we're being honest, think, oh, well, they don't like exercise, or they don't like our exercise. It might be absolutely nothing to do with fitness. It might be that they're not sleeping very well, or they've been drinking too much alcohol, or they've got too much stress at work. But we don't join the dots and see it as a lifestyle purchase. We just see it as fitness. And I think that's where the clubs are now failing. I really do.
Well,
Glenda, you know what?
I just want to say one thing, Rich. Not only are you right, but it's expensive to care, isn't it? I mean, that's what it really comes down to. If you're a club owner and you got Joey who's been working out down the street, and you can convince him to come to your place, that's easy, right? But what about Peter, who hasn't worked out in 20 years? And how do you get him? How do you extend that continuum of care to get him in? Well, that's expensive. And that's where the break happens, right? I got to, get as many members in here as I can. The Planet Fitness has absolutely decimated the in my opinion, and this is just me speaking, but that model has just bastardized what fitness should be.
We say the same thing with Pure Gym and Gym Group and all them over here.
Yeah, well, the problem is, Ryan, and we've said this, that this is a conversation not everybody wants to have, but unfortunately, the model is broken. And, pricing wise, we are a product and service now that cannot be delivered that cheap. And then when you go down that route, how can you even provide service and look at full behavioural change initiatives when you're working on a shoestring? That model is completely flawed. And it's going to be brave people like us that can step up. But the problem is, Ryan, if the big, chains that are out there are running those models because they're banking on the long-term strategy and numerous sites and then getting bought out by a VC fund, the independents are not like that. The model with those numbers penetrating that level of the population and at the prices it costs us to deliver on it doesn't work.
One of the funniest stories I heard during the COVID was Planet Fitness applied to become a medical fitness association club. And they let them. What does that say right there?
Because of the money.
All about the Benjamins. And that, guys, is the essence of why we don't have credibility. Right there.
Well, we say all the time, Bobby, that I don't know whether you follow much in the UK, but we have UK Active over here, and they're forever fighting for government funds. So reduce our VAT, give us money to help drive uptake and so on. And you sit there going, it's never going to happen. It will never happen whilst they don't trust us. And the reason they don't trust us is because all that will happen is they'll give us money, give us VAT breaks, and that, in essence, will just become profit for those big, cheap clubs. They've got no intention of driving fitness or health initiatives. They don't. It's all about profit. So if
They
you
don't
suddenly
want the
said, "Oh, we'll reduce VAT," that's just an extra 10-15% in their profit. It's never going to go to initiatives that drives an extra 10-15% uptake of people, or improves people's health, or goes into the community and finds, like you say, that person who hasn't trained for 20 years. They don't care. They're going after the profit. So where is a government, any government, whether it be US, French, UK, why are they ever going to invest in our industry when that's all we do? And all we're doing is driving it down. Services disappearing, and we're not actually a service anymore for a lot of the clubs. We are literally rented treadmills, and that's the challenge.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things if we kind of come back to the trends that we see. And Glenda, you brought up a point. You probably were stealing from my notes, right? About behavioral change. I mean, we don't even think about that in our industry, right? The whole stages of pre-contemplative, contemplative, preparation, action, maintenance, relapse. You know, we only care about that action stage. We want to get them when they're thinking about joining a club, and then it's going to be join now and get a month free, or pay 50% or no enrollment fee. There's no real value there.
And that's why we can't raise the dial on the number, right? Because we're only grabbing the guys in the action phase, and then we're losing the rest of the market. But unfortunately, our model's not built to attract them. Yeah.
So one of the things that we try to incorporate is with programming, and the clubs that are the clubs that are doing well and with their retention number, it's all about their programming, their group exercise, their training, the programs that they offer, whether they're fee-based or they're free. They're very actively pulling people together. And there's no reason, going back to where Bob was talking about, a club without walls. Yeah. I mean, where's the bringing people together for their common interests where they don't have to come to the club, right? It could be they could be hiking, cycling, snowshoeing, pet walking, training, mall walking, whatever it happens to be. Our trainers should be leading those and being involved in that stuff. And we can also sell those. You don't have to join the club, but pay us the equivalent of a latte every day for 8 weeks, and we guarantee you will lose 5 pounds, whatever it is. And you know what? If you're with our trainer in this class and you're following what we're doing, and you don't achieve those goals, we will either refund your money or you can take it again. And now, would you consider paying that? Would you give me $180 if I can promise it, and in 2 months I'm actually going to lose these 10 pounds that I try to lose and never quite get there or gain? It's like, yeah, maybe I would engage. I don't have to be a member. I'm just going to participate in this program, and you build credibility with that, especially if there's a money back guarantee. Most people don't want to do it because they know some people aren't going to be successful, because there's that behavior, there's that relapse, right? I get the behavior. I'm doing it for 3 or 4 weeks. It's like, I lost 3 pounds. That's pretty good. I guess I'll have the beer and the cheeseburger tonight. If we start understanding that this psychology and the behavior stuff, and we incorporate that as a trainer or whatever, I think we would be more successful. And I know there's been a couple of clubs that I've worked with, one that I managed, that actually put their money where their mouth was when it came to the small group personal training. If you did not achieve your goals, then you would you had the option. We'd refund. It was most of the money, not all of it, 90%. And you would, or you could take the class again. Now,
and out of interest, how many actually refunded?
Very few. Yeah. Now there was something, because you go back to the wearable technology, right? So if you incorporate a Noom or one of those other nutrition programs, a lot of them are free, but you incorporate that, so you're going to actually see what their diary is and how much they're eating. You know what their exercise is. The trainer could check in every week and look at what your technology is reporting. And this comes down to simple math, right? You burn 3,500 more calories than you ate this week. And we know how many calories you're burning. You can wear your iWatch the whole day and say, you just burned 4,000 calories today.
Just out of interest, guys. With obviously, it's an amazing concept. This sort of fitness without walls. Do you think, obviously, with the onset of this metaverse and stuff like that, do you think that's going to have a bigger impact? Because obviously, we're potentially hitting a bigger. Now, I don't understand it fully. I'm still trying to get my head around it all. But do you think that is a trend, obviously, with a lot more of these wearable? Because obviously, that's wearable tech. You've got the goggles that are coming in. Do you think that will play a bigger part, or do you think that's a bit more gimmicky, sat on the side? It's not really.
I'll share with you something that the number 48 represents. The number 48 is 48%. Yesterday, there was a study done for colleges across the country. 48% of all college kids are dealing with depression or anxiety. Now, let's think about that for a second.
Wow.
Okay. Almost 50% of kids going to college. My daughter goes to college. My son's going to college next year. 1 out of 2 of them, based on this, are dealing with some sort of anxiety since COVID. Okay.
Wow.
What an opportunity. Now you mix in what Rich was just talking about, the club without walls, find that comfort zone, give these kids an opportunity to succeed, support them, not just from a physical workout, but emotionally. These are things that we're inputting in programs in our clubs that we work with right now, and we're finding terrific success with them. Now you mix in a little mindfulness and yoga, and now you start saying, okay, instead of being on a treadmill, we're going to, have conversations. We're going to stretch together. Recovery days now mean something, whereas before they didn't. These are all trends, when you combine what Rich was talking about, are going to impact society. That's what clubs should be doing, but they're not.
It's funny you say that, Bobby. That's music to my ears, because obviously my move from fitness way into more, if you want to call it health and wellness, I specialize in resilience. And I think that's something that we're never, we're not teaching people at school. So by the time they're getting into teenage years, and then they look at social media, and then they look at, habits of comparison, judgment, and expectation, and maybe not living mindfully, we build up this state anxiety, and that's not helpful with the bubble that we're all in with social media. And there is a definite opportunity to connect the club to the community at different stages of your life cycle. And I just wondered what you thought, because the other thing, and I know it looks like I'm giving, some tough love on this tonight, this podcast, but our industry's not managed to even get the corporate market to see their local fitness and health club as a potential solution for corporate wellness, which, quite frankly, the people sitting at their desks, whether that's hybrid or not, are the people that probably most need our support. And we could raise that number of the people frequenting our clubs if we could engage them from their offices or their home office before they even get into the walls of the club. So I think that club with no walls even stretches to us going into corporate. And then what does a corporate do in the UK right now? They get in touch with an expert company like mine, who is a wellbeing consultancy company. They don't think of going to their local health club, who, if they did some basic programming, would be able to offer some really good value for money lifestyle wellness solutions.
So the club that I'm sitting in today is the Manchester Athletic Club in Manchester by the Sea. And we recently partnered with a company called Cell Signaling, and we became their corporate fitness center. Okay. Yeah. He came to us, he said, look, I'm gonna take care of my employees. I want this to be a benefit, and literally offered this to his people. And I haven't spoken to them at length, but I can tell you that benefit, when I speak to the people here, that's what's keeping them. That's going to keep them at that facility. We're going to do studies with them. We're adding classes specifically for their needs. We're a resource. We're an HR resource is what we've become for them. And that was a smart move. But that was an investment. That was an investment by the company to do that, and is an investment on our behalf and on our side to create these additional program offerings specifically for them. These are the type of conversations that do need to happen. They're not happening.
Who needs to lead that though, Bobby? Who needs to lead that conversation? Is it the company or is it the club?
Club leaders need to go in and educate. Get on. Every large company around us has a wellness committee. Absolutely. I want all of my staff. I want them on those committees. I want them steering people to wellness, and hopefully we could be their resource, their educational resource of really what is well. Rich mentioned TV. Last night, my son was doing a project. He had to write down all the commercials between, with a show he was watching. 7 out of 10 commercials were quick fix pills, medications.
Wow.
Almost every commercial was about, not feeling this way, take this quick pill.
Well, we do love the medical model, don't we? Cure rather than prevention. And we are a very, very appropriate prevention opportunity. And, like listening tonight, I just want to try and get some positive out for the people that listen to this. It has been challenging. We did not get recognition during COVID. That might be deserved. Our education of the trainers that are coming out are not getting trained on behavioural change and understanding all the demographics that make up the club and what should be targeted, segmented support for those parts of the population in your club. So what is the answer? Because we know that the model's struggling. We know that there is going to be a lot more casualties. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but we're going to start in the UK, we're going to see a huge amount more casualties because of our energy crisis. So how do we help clubs to see that there is, solutions for this? What is the answer?
I have an experience that I'll share that maybe will help us on this topic. It's a club I was managing probably about 15 years ago. The mayor was very forward thinking, and he got a grant of, I think, $250,000 to try to work on a community wellness program. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to be part of this wellness committee. And over time, it occurred to me that exercise is not what they consider wellness, right? They're considered in their community with teen pregnancy, smoking, drug abuse, homelessness, and you're fighting against the tide again, because the schools used to sell French fries in their cafeteria. It was the number one item that kids bought. And for the nutritionists and the dietitians, everybody says we're trying to go, on this anti-obesity thing and childhood obesity and everything else, and you're serving French fries and sugared drinks and soda machines in there. They were fighting it because they made so much money off of it.
Yeah. So
you're fighting against that corporate structure, and they're not seeing people going into a club and exercising as really being on their continuum of wellness. That's their mindset, because those other things are massive societal issues that they don't see exercise as being solving it, right? Although exercise, we know, is a major component of solving it and keeping people healthy. So my aha moment was, why don't we create a nonprofit arm of our facility and go after grants to run these programs? We can run stop smoking programs, and we can run childhood obesity programs, and we can run there was a thing called Pell Grants, where the schools used to get money from the feds for running after school fitness and healthy activities, and all the money dried up and the schools stopped doing it. We can do that. I can find local businesses that would be willing to contribute to running an after school exercise program. So their corporate brand, they get to be heroes. It's part of their, what they do to give back, and everybody wants to do that now. Show how they're helping society, and their corporation is so wonderful. So we put that program together, that after school program. I have since done that in a couple of other places, and we're working with a really big client now, creating a nonprofit entity so we can provide low cost or even no cost programs to kids that need to get trained on exercise or want to be in,
Wow.
swimming and football and baseball, and the parents can't afford it. So we've done things successfully with cancer, getting grants for cancer programs. We have a thing called the PALS. It's a breast cancer survivor program. It deals with the emotional stuff, the physical, the exercise, the limitations that they have, and the people are actually being funneled to the club from the oncology program at the hospital. That's how good it is. And
well, one thing that you really demonstrate there, Rich, is the power of collaboration, because this doesn't all need to be using your in-house resource. There's so many agencies and people in your local area that if you come together and collaborate, you can do some amazing, impactful stuff that is community driven, that's going to bring people into your clubs.
Right. And that goes back to kind of the club without walls and the omni channels and everything, because they're getting this from the oncology people, they're getting from the rehab people, they're getting it from, we've got another program called 60 for 60 with 60 days for $60 with physical therapy. So after you finish your physical therapy, you get put into this program. It's extremely cheap. And you continue, right? You're on the continuum of care, and a percentage of those will stick with the facility once they're familiar with it and they realize we're not all these young people in ponytails running at 7 miles an hour on a treadmill, and I don't belong there. So there's just a ton of these types of programs that are available.
The key to that, Rich, and that is a great program that Rich developed. But when people come into a physical therapy office in a club, the biggest problem I see is that they wait to the end of the therapy to start engaging the club. You actually need to do this right away. The first day you go in with a therapist, I want to introduce you to Rich Synnott and his team. They're going to be the people we're transitioning to after you're done with us. That step right there really now feeds the next step. But, most people don't think about it till it's an afterthought. Oh, I'm out of sessions. Now what do I do? Oh yeah, go over to the gym. They'll help you out.
Yeah, I think that's quite a common trend. I find it with a lot of clients I work with, Bobby, that there's no actual thought in terms of your client journey, and that a lot of them will do. Obviously, they'll do their sales journey, so telephone call to this automation, to that automation. They join. The moment that person lands in the club, there's no signposting to the various other services in the business. So you'll get someone who comes in and they want to train in the gym, but at no point do we introduce them to a personal trainer. So potentially they'll take up that. At no point do we introduce that person to Group X. So you get these guys that come in who would really benefit from Pilates, from yoga, from spinning or whatever, but they've never tried it. They've probably done a sport all their life, being some bloke, might play rugby, whatever it is. They're going to go in there, going to do heavy weights. But the moment you introduce them to another part of the club, they love it, absolutely love it. They get engrossed in it. I've seen people take up spinning and end up cycling, doing triathlons, all sorts. And they came in to do heavy weight training. And now suddenly their whole ethos on training is turned around. And now they're a triathlete training, running events every single Sunday. And you're like going, all because they were signposted into a different activity.
Yeah. Ryan, it all starts, and this is something that Rich and I we will not compromise on, but a needs analysis, right? How simple is that? When you walk into a club, you ask basic questions. Do you like to work out alone or in a group? When's the last time you were in shape? We ask that question all the time. We ask these questions because that's going to shape your journey with us. Not $18.99 or $25.99. Good luck to you. If you want a trainer, I'll introduce you to Joey. No, it's here's what's going to get you to your goals. One of the things we're implementing here is we're going to do a map. It's pretty cool. Like staff came up with this. And we're going to say, okay, here you are. And we list a lot of things. I'm sedentary. I haven't worked out in months. I'm feeling bloated, feeling this, all the way up to I'm going to run triathlons. Where are you on your journey?
Yeah.
And we're going to have them put themselves where they are now and where they want to be. So we've tested this a little bit, and it's just the visual has been so impactful. And now we're in a position to say, okay, we're going to help you get there together. We're going to give you the pathway to success.
But what a great way of being able to celebrate as well each achievement along the route. So as they're going along, they've achieved, I don't know, they do their first triathlon. We celebrate it. Results are irrelevant, but we celebrate it. And then they move on and their time's getting better. All the way along, the whole club is able to celebrate with that person. How much more likely is that person going to stay longer, enjoy what they're doing, engage with the staff and the activities that we're doing? I mean, what a fantastic idea. I love it. It's
Brian,
and like you say, it's visual as well.
Yeah, I just wondered what the gap, just being conscious of time. What do you guys see? I know that you've talked about the trends, and I think that we've really went into that. Definitely it being much more holistic than fitness. I think the fitness with no clubs with no walls is really something I hope our listeners really dive into. How can they connect people who don't necessarily want even a fitness workout right now, but they want to go and do swimming or, outdoor swimming or walking or whatever it is, climbing, whatever you said. I think it's a great idea. I just wondered what you guys see that would be similar for us to consider. Is what would you say are the top 3 opportunities coming up post-COVID, and taking into account that we've had some shakeout and that probably it's got to be a really good club that's survived all this. So there's the positive. And if they've survived, which a lot have, what is the big opportunities for us moving forward?
Yeah, there's a couple of people that are really doing it right. We work with a great group in Iowa called TBK Bank Sports. They have, I think they have the future. It's one-stop shopping. They've got 18 baseball fields, 8 basketball courts, a 25,000 square foot state-of-the-art fitness center, medical facilities. And what they're doing in that facility is they're starting to say, come in here. Joey doesn't just have to play games every day. We'll have sports-specific training as well as strength training now. So we're broadening the continuum of care, as Rich said earlier, and now people are staying there. They're coming back an extra day. They're staying there 2 hours later because we have food there. There's a friend of ours, Dr. Sean Pasto, he and his team from Active Life. They're people you should speak with, Ryan. They're terrific. They're really doing a lot of cool things in the industry right now. But the industry, it isn't fitness. It can't be just fitness. If you want just fitness, join URSA and go back to the, where it was 20 years ago. If you want the future, get into active living and learn how to create active living. It doesn't necessarily have to be all physical. It could be social. It could be, supportive. My college coach a couple of years ago, his wife, his mother, and his father all died within 11 days of one another.
Wow.
Boom, boom, boom. Wife had cancer. Mom was sick. Father was such. I honestly was very worried about him. He resurrected himself going to a spin class with other people who have had quick losses. 8 out of the 10 times he went there wasn't to spin. It was to just be with other people. Then they got into spinning. Then they got into going out for coffee. Then they got going into this. That's what a club needs to be now. He was active here. Then he became active here. And the rest is history, So that's where I see the industry needs to go. Where is it going? In a big circle right now. It's spinning. Yeah. It's just spinning out of control, and it's hurting itself. People are robbing members from other clubs and think that they're winning when the other club goes out of business. We need to do a better job. It starts with leadership, and there's a lack of it right now.
But that's interesting, Bobby, because it's not in this country either. We talk about it, don't we, Glenda, all the time. We don't have the industry leadership in this country either. No. So I think it's a worldwide thing. I think it's they just nobody really knows where it's going, and no one's standing up to go, right, this is what needs to happen.
Well, the clubs that have figured it out, and we mentioned one to you, this is a great club here that's doing well. Those clubs that are embracing this wider longer welcome mat, so to speak, are going to win, because it's we're not coming in. They're not talking just about how to get in shape. They're talking about how they can prevent getting sick. You know,
well,
great defense.
Yeah, Bobby, I love that though, and I just want to remind people what you said there about active living, because I really, really think that resonates. I mean, I know that everybody who knows me knows I'm a fan of wellness, but that word can sound, a bit abstract, and just everybody understands what we mean by active living. It's a really good message to put out there for everybody to think about, and that's not the same thing for every person. That is quite personal, what that looks like for that person. And it's a really, really important message about how we can extend the club way beyond the perimeters of the walls. And, Rich, you've said that a lot in this tonight. I just wonder if we need to consider how we're educating our future trainers, because we do focus on product. We focus on technical.
That's an entirely. There's one guy, Ryan, and you guys should speak with, that does it right. His name is Mike Boyle. Mike Boyle is he's been doing this for years. He was the head trainer for the Boston Bruins, the Boston Red Sox when they won. He's universally known as one of the gurus, but I was in his place last week. He wasn't working with athletes. He had two groups of 80 plus, 20 people, 80 years old, doing deadlifts last week. He is one conversation. He is the best in the industry by far. Just look up Mike Boyle. He's phenomenal.
I'm going to name drop you, Bobby, and get him on. That's what we're going to do. Going to name drop you two and get him on.
Absolutely. And I do have to get off. I'll just say one more thing. I was very lucky during COVID. I was asked to be part of a movie that came out, and one of the whole concepts of the movie was about how people need people. It's about a basketball coach finding this kid in Spain and bringing him overseas and training him. And, clubs need to have that mentality. When people walk in, we can't look at them as dollar signs. We need to look at them as, how can we make this person an exceptional member and get a great experience? And that has been lost in this industry.
Bobby, that film that you're talking about, that didn't come out recently, did it? And it was in
it's got the comedian
box office. Or am I thinking of another movie?
It's Hustle with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
And I was actually Adam's advisor for
movie. One of his. Oh my God, I love that movie. I freaking loved it.
Yep. So that's
there you go.
For 6 months, but.
Well,
right,
because you were short
with Rich, I've got to go. But this was such a pleasure. Anytime.
Absolutely.
I think you guys are great. You're in great hands with the Bearded Knowledge, though. He's the guy that taught me everything I know.
Wow,
well, we'll definitely get you on again then, Bobby. But really appreciate your time, and we'll finish off with Rich.
Wow, thank you, Bobby.
See you, Bob.
Thank you.
I just can't believe that film is amazing.
Yeah. His story with Adam and playing basketball. He's got a lot of really cool stories about that, including when they were filming. There was huge riots, and the whole film crew had to be shuffled off so they wouldn't get involved in a riot in one of the cities they were filming at one point. So it's pretty amazing. But anyway, so I mean, we sort of went all around with a bunch of things without a ton of depth. We're kind of still at 10,000 feet, but I mean, both of you have been around long enough. It's all the theory is great, but when it comes down to it, you've got to find operators that are willing to try to find one of these types of niches, right, and make it work. And then once that works, then you can work on another one. The problem with a lot of these things, you try it for a while, it's just a lot of work, right? Getting that wheel to spin and getting the sand out of the gears and making it work. So many times it comes down to. Go ahead.
Sorry, Rich. I was going to say, do you think the future then? because you're saying clubs going with it individually. Do you think even in an international or national level, do you think the future is clubs doing it on their own, sort of going, okay, I'm gonna grab the ball by its balls, and I'm gonna drive this myself? Or do we need to get clubs together and go, we need a leadership? Because you guys have mentioned a couple of times, I know Bobby did during this, to say we don't really have leadership. But is it a case of leadership isn't going to happen? I've been in industry 25 years, obviously nowhere near your experience, Rich, but at no point in there have I gone, oh, we're going places. We've got the right people in charge. So I don't believe we're going to, in my career, in the next 20 years or whatever, I still don't see that that's ever going to change. So it's like, do we then go and encourage the individual clubs to go, okay, let's work with these individual clubs to grow and get them to grow it from within, rather than expecting something from the outside to push the industry forward?
Yeah, I don't see it. And you've probably been, both of you, in positions where someone has asked, would you be willing to start a leadership group or something, right? And we've been asked the same thing. I was the president of the New England Health and Racket Sport Association, and on their board for various ways for 10 or 12 years, back in the early 2000s, I think. And during COVID, that whole thing just completely fell apart. Now, they had 400 facilities that were members of that organization. And we did a lot of cool things with training, really training more, not just a big conference that you have to spend thousands of dollars to send people to, so the clubs can't afford it, or they only send a couple of elite people, but training the rank and file, the facilities directors and the front desk workers, and doing these state by state conferences where it was like, $80 a person. So it was affordable. Unfortunately, they went belly up, and we were asked if we wanted to start that up again. And you look at the politics, and every organization, I think, gets to a point where you need money to continue to thrive and grow. And then you start to have to compromise your principles, I think, sometimes, because of same with URSA and NERSA. You've got these vendors that are participating, and 50 or 60% of your income is coming in from these people, and they start to direct what they want to have happen. And I think you lose your credibility. And I've never been one to really enjoy the politics of it. And who gets on the board, who doesn't, where do you have your next, seminar? Why isn't it in my state? Why isn't it here? I mean, that stuff gets to become so onerous. And I think we're kind of like the pizza industry, right? You could sell the best pizza in the world in your little shop, but there's something that you need to do if you want to become a Domino's Pizza or somebody, that eventually you sacrifice the quality, whatever got you to where you were starts to get circumvented, and the quality and just the logistics. I mean, you've probably seen it, Ryan, with clubs that want to open a second or third club. Right? Trying to keep your corporate brand and your identity in a different market with it just is really hard. It's really
franchising is really hard. You watch people do franchising, and it's you can see how hard it is for them. I mean, some do it really well, obviously, but it's I've been involved in some that have collapsed and haven't worked simply because they can't maintain that quality. So
they can't. They can't, and it's really difficult. So when it comes to an industry organization that's going to have that vision and that mission and stay focused on it, with all the input that comes in from everybody else saying this is the most important, this is the most important. We've been trying to do stuff with hospitals for how many, 30 years now? Very seldom does it work. We've had some success, as I said, with this nonprofit thing, because they can send somebody into your facility and know they're going to get a quality program because we've trained and integrated and we've built credibility. That took 2 or 3 years. Try to make that happen with one hospital. You know what it's like to try to talk to a hospital administrator. They don't want to hear it, and they don't want to give up. Lots of times, we had a hospital that we were trying to get a cardiac rehab program. They were so far behind to get their patients into their program was a 6-month wait list.
Wow.
Now you come out of your heart surgery, you shouldn't have to wait 6 months, but they didn't have the infrastructure to do it. And we're saying, well, we could take these people, we could have a nurse or an AED or whatever else you need. Tell us. They didn't want to give it up.
Yeah.
They don't
Well,
want to
this is
lose
the
the
problem.
income.
It's the worry that you're land grabbing, don't they? And people like self-preservation of their own, responsibilities. Rich, just to finish on, what would you say for the people listening? What would you say if they were ignoring all the noise, politics, other providers? Granted, we should be aware of our competitors. What's the best bit of advice you can give the independent club operators for the next 12 months?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I think when it really comes down to it, the people who are successful are club owners that are not focused on, I hate to say this, but on the bottom line. I know you need to be. But if you really are concerned about running an excellent facility, we haven't really talked about this, but you've got to get excellent people. You've got to have the people that work for you really be people who are invested in the success of the members, that like people, that like your members. And you've got, as an owner, got to treat those people like they are as important as they are. Not like it's just, oh, that person, that's just a commodity. I'll hire another front desk person if that person leaves. I'll hire another trainer. There's a lot of owners that don't pay any attention to the people that they've got hired, and give them, really, what do they want? They just want to be recognized. They want to be heard. Yeah. I know one of the programs that I did, it was really successful, with some of our younger people, like a lifeguard or somebody in the maintenance department or whatever, who was doing a good job. Like we had a lifeguard who saved somebody's life, and they don't think about it. They just, oh, this kid was fluttering in the water. I jumped in and saved him. And it's like no big thing. The kid didn't drown. He didn't have to give CPR. But you know what? If he wasn't paying attention, that could have been a death. You saved somebody's life. You were paying attention. And I sent a letter to his parents.
Wow.
Telling him what a great person he was. He never even told his parents. It's like, oh, well, how was work today? Yeah, I was fine. He didn't think about it that way. But we make a big thing about some of those things. You give thank yous. You write thank yous to people on the desk. You give out little things. It doesn't have to be great. The other thing that I'll do, is another practical thing, is every club that we've worked with, we find out about their corporate cards. If you're not getting points and other things you can redeem, in a bigger club, some of these things can add up to thousands of dollars. So we give out gift cards all the time. And those are from the points we earn, because we buy everything with those. We start paying for everything on our credit card. And then we amass all of these things, and we give out $25 Amazon cards to somebody at the front desk. Someone who you covered for somebody's shift. She was out sick all week and you worked a double shift. Here's something.
You are right, Rich, about, we could talk for another hour. We could probably talk for all day, us 3, 4 together. But
we'll get Rich on again, Ryan, for sure.
Yeah, I say this to Ryan a lot. We're so focused though on the members' health and wellness. What about the people that you are entrusting to do the job of that? Are they healthy and are they well? And I think that you leave us with a really important message that has come up a lot recently. Mark Tweedy talked about paying enough for our instructors in the UK. Ryan, he said that last week.
Absolutely.
There are other people that have really been putting the message out there about how are we prepared to treat staff in our sector? Because I don't know what it's like for you guys in the US, but in the UK right now, we are struggling for staff.
Yeah. Well, and that's a whole other topic. Obviously, I'll leave you with one other part that I think is important, is that
go for it.
The club owners and managers don't spend enough time bettering themselves. And with all the channels that are out there now, with podcasts like this, and really in-depth stuff that they can get, books. I mean, I ask people all the time, what's the last book? What's the last podcast? What's what kind of social groups do you belong? Business networking. what do you, I'm too busy. I can't do it. We offered in the States a couple of regional seminars just during the middle of COVID because everything was shut down. Nobody's doing anything. And once our expenses were covered, so we charged a minimal amount, I think it was $125, right, per person to participate. Once we covered all of our expenses, we offered it free.
Wow.
We offered it free to anybody else that wanted to send. Any club that already signed up, you have 2 or 3 people, bring others for free. We've covered our nut. We want to get this information out there and get everybody enthused and excited. I can't tell you how many people we called and they wouldn't send anybody. They had nobody to send. They were too busy. They did short of staff. If you don't have time to educate yourself and spend time, you don't have to pay a consultant. This is free stuff.
Yeah. We see this a lot, Rich. It's like it's fascinating because we've never lived in a world where the learning economy is more accessible than now. There is so much incredible free stuff. And again, an amazing message. I always say, you can't fill from an empty cup, right? It's like you've got to start with you as the leader of that business. And I think that's another amazing message. And like you say, we could talk about that for hours.
One final question, Rich, before we let you go. Bob's already jumped off, so I can't ask him, but we ask all of our guests who inspires them or what inspires them to do what they do or has inspired you along your journey, whether it be a person or individual group of people. What would you say is your biggest inspiration?
I started out, I graduated as an English teacher. Right? And so I guess I sort of inherently always wanted to help people, train people, educate people, whatever it was. And that wasn't my thing. I didn't like the structure of teaching and everything. And I did a bunch of different things here and there. But I was fortunate enough way back to work for an industry guru, Dale Dibble. And you mentioned a couple of people like Lloyd, I think it was with some of the big franchises that are in the UK. They used to come to the facility that I was working at. So I got trained as hired as their front and tennis desk manager way back. And he was one of the first people in the industry that practiced open book management and worked with. We had a 10 manager senior staff. And all of our weekly management meetings, he included some training aspect about the business, about the numbers, about people, mostly from his, 20 years of success. And that guy, it still lives with me. All those things he taught me about the value of people, hiring right, knowing your numbers, and just being excited every day about his facility. He just loved walking around and touching the people, and I shouldn't say touching them these days, but you know what I mean? Shaking their hand, knowing them, knowing who they were, and listening. You just listen to your members. They're going to tell you what they like and don't like. Yeah. I mean, and creating that bottom up pyramid where, this isn't about us being at the top. It's about inverting that pyramid, right?
Yeah.
Because your rank and file people are going to be the ones seeing all the problems, getting all the complaints. And if they don't funnel that to you, you can't make those changes. So he was so good at imparting all that knowledge. I've never forgotten.
Fantastic.
A lot of that stuff from him.
We will leave it on that note. So from me, Rich, and obviously pass on our thanks to Bobby as well, because I think it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys on. So really appreciate it. I'm glad we managed to put this together. So we will definitely get you on again. We'll obviously have many other series, so we'll definitely get you on again and pick out some of those staff stories and everything else. But
anytime.
For me, absolutely. Thank you very much. And I follow you anyway, and I follow you. I even follow you on Facebook with the various your pictures out in the and your dad jokes that you put on a regular basis. So
Ryan, maybe sometime this year we could do a webinar where we get Rich and Bobby's expertise on there, because I think people need to hear more of that.
Absolutely. So, so for now, we will let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. Really appreciate your time, and we will catch you again soon.
And great getting to meet you, Glenda. Thank you.
Oh,
Hopefully
Rich, I'm going to definitely request you on LinkedIn. Ryan has always been so complimentary about you, but it's made me, when I go quiet and start going in my head and thinking, that's a good sign. And I'm already reflecting and thinking, oh, I've got so much I want to ask myself just from what you were both
anytime.
saying. Yeah.
He's got my email address, so happy to share whatever I have.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love that. Just stay on now until are you going to stop recording, Ryan? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll